Hello and welcome once again to Boomer 11 Football Talk. And today we are going to be talking about the transfer deadline, which has come very close now as we are heading into the end, towards the end of the January transfer window. And I have with me Abel. Abel, how are you rating the transfer window so far? Because a lot of money has been already spent. There's obviously the news that's coming up about Chelsea and the amount of spending that has done throughout not just this transfer window, but even the previous one as well, ever since the takeover by Todd Bowley. So overall, it's been another exciting month, you would say, of transfer.
Yeah, firstly, great to be back, and we are here talking about football. And of course, today is the deadline day, isn't it? So when we talk about deadline day, there has been some of the most accelerating days. It's one of the most accelerating days when it comes to transfer. And this is a day where everything moves pretty quickly rather than other days. Negotiation, there are no lot of times for negotiation. If a club wants a player, they should make a move ASAP. And if the other club wants to sell him, they also have to do it. So it's a two-way deal. Both have to do it in a mutual understanding. That's why everything happens very quickly on a transfer deadline day. One of the fondest memories and one of the most intriguing stories which I have with transfer deadline day is when David De Gea in 2013, I remember he was going to make a move to Real Madrid, and on the last moments his facts got delayed, so they couldn't sign the papers, and deadline day was officially closed. So these kind of stories keep coming out from a deadline day, and that's the most fun thing on a deadline day thing. But to be honest, this transfer window, a January transfer window, compared to any other transfer window, has happened. A lot of things has happened because, firstly, there's a transfer window more like a season opener because a World Cup just happened prior to this, and this was like a fresh start for a lot of clubs. A lot of players were injured because of the World Cup, prior to the World Cup, because of the way in which thick and fast way in which the games came to them. But now here a lot of teams do understand it's about time for them to build for the future. And as you rightly mentioned, Chelsea are one of the prime clubs who have done that, and we also will be talking about how Chelsea are finding a loophole in UEFA rules and trying to make these deals as well. But to be honest, I find this transfer window much more intriguing than the summer transfer window, which happened earlier, because there were definitely some of the big deals in summer transfer window. But then you look at the kind of deals which happened in this transfer window, right? Ronaldo moving, you saw players like how Felix, Modric, a lot of players came to Chelsea. But even towards the deadline day as well, how Cancelo they can make a move. Now we don't know in the final last, even Bernardo Silva from City could make a move to Barcelona as well. So a lot of things like this are happening at a very quick rate, so it's an unpredictable transfer window so far, and I'm absolutely loving this.
I mean, let's start with the news you already spoke about. We'll start with how Cancelo, which has just come out in just a few hours ago, that Bayern Munich has confirmed his signing as a loan deal, but with an option to buy him at the end of the season. Huge, you would say, because of Pep Guardiola has let go of a lot of players that made up the core of his victory in the Premier League last time around.
Yeah, Jaren, I mean, you need to understand Pep Guardiola. Once he doesn't like a player, he doesn't give that player a chance, and that's primarily because of what's happening all across, right? You have to understand with how Cancelo over the last maybe over the last 2 to 3 weeks since the beginning of the season after the World Cup, there has certainly been a lack of trust from Pep Guardiola's end, that he's not showing him enough faith and trust in this player. That's primarily also because there were occasions, tactically speaking, there were occasions when City used to attack. How Cancelo used to tuck in as a midfielder in that, and it used to be a back three. But there used to be also two midfielders who used to tuck in there in that space. And how what used to happen was he used to also attack very in a position when Foden used to kind of drift inwards or try to go into the interiors. What how he used to do is to give that width, or at times you could also see how Cancelo coming into the interior spaces as well. That's one thing which you get with an inverted fullback like how Cancelo, because he's very good in terms of his attacking play. He used to have that confidence, especially on the ball. His creativity was top notch. He demanded the number 7 shirt. It's not like it was given to him just by chance or just for something. He demanded because he used to put in that kind of effort. He used to be as good as a winger for Manchester City. But what has happened over the last 3 weeks is that his defensive ability or acumen has really dropped down to an extent which nobody could see that happening after the World Cup. Even during the World Cup, you saw that with Portugal. There was a clear lack of desire even from Fernando Santos, that he didn't want a player like how Cancelo starting, because his defensive work rate, whatever he's giving, was extremely poor. He was finding in positions where he was unable to win the second ball. He was getting beaten. He was getting dribble pass, which is not a good sign. And for how Cancelo, what has happened is Nathan Ake has done a very good job for City on the left back position. And what City has found is City has found a gem in Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis, 18-year-old player, his kind of maturity is shown in the games he has played is way too good. And that's what Pep identifies talent very early. The moment Pep feels this guy is a special kid, he throws him into the deep waters. And you've seen that with Foden, you've seen that with Messi in Barcelona, and now you're seeing that with this young kid called Rico Lewis, a right back who has been outstanding for Manchester City over the last three to four games. So that is where City is looking beyond. That's where City looked beyond how Cancelo over the last few matches, and you're seeing the results as well. Whatever City are not in the best of shape like last season. There's certainly certain jolts in that particular wheel, but now what Pep is looking at is Pep is pretty futuristic. But I still think it is a big L on City to have a player leave just before the deadline day.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He is going to be missed for sure. But then as you mentioned, right? Pep is the kind of manager who feels if he can't work with the player, then he just lets them go. I mean, I think a prime example for that was Ibrahimovic when he was in Barcelona. I mean, it's not that Ibrahimovic was not a good player, but he was not just was not good enough for Pep, and that's just how he is. So that is from the Man City side of things. But how do you look at Bayern, and how do you think Bayern will how Cancelo will fit in the system that Bayern produces?
I mean, see, with Bayern Munich, what they really wanted is a winger, a right back who could be very good in attacking progression. Because with Alfonso Davies on the left, there was certain assurity that he can attack and he can also defend. There is an assurity which you have as a manager. As an Nagelsmann, if I'm managing a team like Bayern Munich, I have the assurity that the work rate which Alfonso Davies is going to give, not a lot of right back, not a lot of wing backs across the world will give me. He's top notch. That's why Alfonso Davies is one of the most wanted left backs in the world, or he's possibly the top two left backs in the world at this point as well, because he's right up there. But on the right hand side with Pavard, what you really don't get is that Pavard is good in terms of his defensive positioning, but if you ask Pavard to go into uh, the final third, put a ball in, he possibly will not do that. And he does not have the pace to even recover back, even if he progress forward. Or in the defensive transition, he will fall short against pacey wingers. And now what Bayern is going to come up is Bayern is going to come up against a good PSG squad who's going to have Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi. And that is a tough task for them. Now, even in the season, it's not like any other Bundesliga where Bayern has really run off with the Bundesliga. It is still a close contest, and you saw that in that game where they played the opening game. It was a nil. It was a 1-1 draw, if I remember. And the kind of sloppy football what we are seeing from all the Bundesliga teams after that 2-month long break is a clear evidence as to they really need a lot of rejuvenation or a really new reconstruction in a lot of their squads. You saw even Jan Sommer making a move to Bayern Munich. I thought that was a very good move. But I'm pretty surprised at the fact that they're letting go of Sabitzer on the deadline day. I still think Sabitzer. I don't know if they're seeing a future with Ryan Gravenberg. Whatever I could anticipate at this point of stage is that one thing which is quite a surety with Sabitzer or with Ryan Gravenberg is they will not get the chances because there's Goretzka and Kimmich in their prime at this point. Even if Sabitzer is going to play, he can play in the midfield three for sure, because I don't see a lot of players who can attack, because Sabitzer is an advanced playmaker more than a defensive midfielder, and that's something which Bayern Munich will need, because Goretzka and Kimmich can play in different positions, and the kind of positional play which these both can bring in is totally different to what Sabitzer can. Sabitzer can still make those. He can play as a number 8 and as a number 10 for your squad, and that's something which is vital in a team like Bayern Munich, and you need to understand the kind of player utility you can get out of Sabitzer. But I don't know what's the deal right now. It's not yet on. It's not yet confirmed. But if they're letting go of Sabitzer, I think it's not a great thing at all. I know they have signed Leimer, but Leimer is going to possibly join them in summer, but not now.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, there is news being reported by Daily Mail that Leicester City's Ayos Perez has completed his move to Real Betis. Ayos Perez, I mean, let's talk about Leicester City, right? They've not had a very good season so far. And Ayos Perez has never really made a name for himself I mean, after coming from here. Newcastle. He's not made a name for himself at Leicester as well. And there are rumors that Leicester are looking to. I mean, it's not confirmed yet, but they want Jack Harrison from Leeds United to play for them. So if that's the case, do you reckon this is a sort of a confirmation that Leicester are confident they're going to get Jack Harrison, and that's the reason why they have allowed someone like Ayos Perez to. It's a loan deal, mind you. It's not a transfer yet, but his contract is supposed to end by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, a lot of players are looking to leave Leicester. That's primarily because they are kind of not being adaptive to what's happening in Leicester, and they have a feeling that this club is not going forward at all. I mean, the stagnation which is happening in Leicester City at this point is quite evident to the world. It's just not that it is happening. It has just happened now. It has happened over a period of time, and this particular season is a clear evidence as to what has not worked for Brendan Rodgers, and it's been that kind of a season where you can get sacked and you can completely see things go in a haywire, and whatever possibly could have gone wrong for Leicester City, everything has whatever has a silver lining for Leicester, at least from an individual perspective, from a Leicester player. It's just been Madison who's had a very decent season, and hence Madison is also now reportedly linked with Manchester City. He could possibly be linked with
Yeah.
Manchester City. He could possibly make a move to Manchester City in the summer, but not now. And that is also a clear evidence as to what Leicester is not doing right. And also I think Talisman is also going to make a move as well, maybe in the summer or maybe in the deadline day as well, because there are teams like Liverpool, there are other teams who really want midfielders like Madison and Talisman, and for me, what I personally think is that Leicester City is now facing the worst possible situation. No player would really ideally want to join them. Even for Ios Perez, he's not really had a great best of season. He's not even a short starter for that team. But the fact is that every player who's involved in the squad does not
Yeah.
really have that. The mentality in the dressing room has really dropped down, and that's not a good thing to have when you're a team. And what you need to do at this point of stage is, look to make positive moves out of it and try to go out of the club. That's the best possible way for you out of the future, and maybe play for a bigger club. Get some European football if possible, because I don't see Leicester getting European football in the next couple of seasons unless of there happens a huge turnaround, and people see things happening in a completely different mold for Leicester, which will not happen this season. And of course, next season is going to be really a Herculean task for that club to really turn things around, because at this point, Leicester are just above the relegation battle, and anything can possibly happen for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a comment here by Priyanka who wants to know about Man United and their signings. So, Able Man United are reportedly looking for Sabitzer. They are, I think, because of the injury that has come at late stage to Christian Eriksen. Now they are hoping that Sabitzer could be that replacement. How do you reckon if this deal does go through? How do you reckon it's going to benefit Man United? Because I mean, he is someone who's got the potential, isn't it, to really play a role.
Yeah, as I rightly mentioned, for me, for Manchester United, it's obviously a positive signing. Any player coming into Manchester United at this point of time is a positive move, because what I can really perceive is that what Manchester United are looking at is a way in which they want to make a team for the next 6 months and see how things will go in the summer. And for me, at this point, Sabitzer will be an ideal player to come into Manchester United, because Eriksen is injured. Remember that Eriksen is possibly out for next
Yeah.
3 to 2 months, and they will need a player of very similar to Eriksen's profile, and that's why Sabitzer is the ideal player to come in. He's very good on the ball. He's a good compulsive presser, and which means you will get a lot of work rate out of Sabitzer. And especially if you want him to play as an advanced player, he can do that on the pitch as well. If you have to talk about a modern day midfielder, and what Sabitzer ticks almost all the boxes what you want as a manager, and that's where Sabitzer becomes even more important commodity at this point of stage for Manchester United. If not Sabitzer, I see them going for someone like a Ryan Gravenberch, primarily because of Ten Hag having worked with him in Ajax. And also, Ten Hag, I've seen a lot of his development in Ajax. In Ajax, he was an absolute baller. After him moving to Bayern Munich, it was only obvious that he wouldn't get any minutes under the belt, because Goretzka and Kimmich are in the prime form of their life. They are in prime of their career, rather, where they're 27 years old and they're absolutely balling it around Germany and around Europe. So it's very tough for a young kid who have been 19, 20 years to break into the squad at this point. And that's why I personally feel if they don't get Sabitz in the last moments, at least they should try to press for someone like Gravenberg. Gravenberg, what you get is a solid right hand midfielder. He can play as a CDM, he can play as a 8, he can play box to box. He'll give you a lot of versatility on the pitch as well. And that's where I personally United, that'd be only a big bonus for United. And I think it's an upgrade to what you have from Ericsson, because with Ericsson, after that health issue, whatever he faced, there's certainly been a clear drop off in the way he's played. It's not like the Ericsson in Spurs or
Hmm.
Ericsson in Inter Milan when he joined. There's definitely been a drop down that is pretty evident. But now, if you're getting a Gravenberg or Sabitzer, it's of course going to be of course going to be a huge move into a club like United, who are absolutely on a climb, and they have a match against Barcelona in 2 weeks' time. So this is also need to be considered, because Barcelona on the other end also are on a peaking stage. Both clubs are in very similar situation, but it is a very similar situation of rebuild rather, and very similar situation in terms of their upward climb. So they will need players to compete in competition like Europa League. They're competing in almost all competition. They're competing in FA Cup, they're competing in Carabao Cup, they're competing in Europa League and Premier League. So if you want to stay alive in all four competition, immense squad depth moving into the latter half of the season, and that's why I personally think Gravenberg or Sabitzer to Manchester United will be a positive move.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about another Premier League club. Then we did speak about them initially. Chelsea very interested in trying to get Enzo Fernandez, the World Cup winner from Argentina. They've had issues with Benfica before, where the manager of Benfica came out to criticize Chelsea and their strategies. But overall, as well, Chelsea have been criticized because look at the amount of signings they've just got in this transfer window. How Felix, Modric, Madueke, Gusto, who've just recently signed. This is just a January transfer window, and before that, they had a lot of these players come in, and they've spent a lot of money. And Abel, you were going to explain how they have exploited a loophole in UEFA, a fair play rules. If I'm not wrong, it's got to do with some accounting technicality, isn't it? Where you can show you don't have to show the lump sum amount right away in a transfer deadline. You can show it based on the player's contract, and if the player's contract is longer, that means they can show the overall expenses lower.
Yeah, so basically, this loophole is all about amortization. For the people who do not know what exactly amortization is, it is basically a process through which where you can pay an amount of. It's basically a sense of EMI. Most of you people might have heard of EMI structure, where you can pay a particular amount over a period of time. And for what Chelsea have done is try to make use of the use of amortization and longer contracts. Now, what Chelsea have done is offer 8 year, 8.5 year contract to a player like Mudrik, and they've signed it for 88 million. So what Chelsea have decided to do is pay the 88 million over a period of next 8 years, which means it will just cost them over 10 million a year, and that is what's going to be that's what's going to be accounted in the books. So as per UEFA rules, you can there is no absolute ban on amortization and longer contracts. And now after what Chelsea has done is UEFA now plan to bring up a particular rule where you can only amortize for 5 years and not more than that. So that's what UEFA have planned to do. You still can amortization, and now Chelsea have really exploited it. Provide an 8.5 year long contract to Mudrik, and where they can only pay 10 million. And as per the books, Chelsea might have only spent 80 million in the entire transfer window compared to what they have actually spent on a lot more players. They've possibly signed what 5 to 6 players this no more than 6 players in this transfer window, and they've signed also Malo Gusto, and he will be joining them in the summer. But what Chelsea are doing is that in their books they have absolutely cleaned or washed their hands. So whenever financial fair play even comes into account, what's going to happen is they only spend 10 million plus another 8 million plus another 10 million. They've not actually spent all 80 to 60 or 70 million. So in combination, they've only spent very minimal amount over a period of time. Now what's going to happen is there's a con to this as well. Of course, we've spoken about the loophole which they've exploited. Now what's going to happen is if Mudrik does not become a success in Chelsea, now they will have to pay off his contract, and every year, when they start off a particular transfer window, they would have already spent 80 million. Now that is the con to this
Hmm.
particular thing. Your 80 million has
Yeah.
already gone off. So that for the next 8 years, you have to absolutely understand that 80 million is god of the book. Now this is a very risky business which is done by Bowley. What Todd Bowley has done is that he's taken that punt in making sure that he wants to build a squad for the future, and he's gone absolutely all guns blazing and believing that I'm gonna get the players regardless of if I get transfer banned or not. Even if I get transfer banned for 2 seasons, I'll have enough squad and I'll have enough players to play around with for the next 2 seasons. Even if I let go of players, I really would not have to. And even if I have to pay 80 million, I have secured my next 8 to 10 years. That's what is the sense of belief which I'm getting from Chelsea Football Club. They're looking at a youth project at this point, get all these 20, 21-year-old players and go, show immense faith in them that they're going to absolutely go out there and perform for the club. So this is it's a double-edged sword. If they don't end up playing well in a club like Chelsea, which will mean there's an absolute waste of money, and your books will be in the accounting books will be shown that your 80 million is gone for every season, every transfer window starting from now. Now that is where Chelsea will have to be extremely careful. If things don't go their way, it can be a downslide as well. There's a risk maybe worth taking, but if it works out, all well and good for Chelsea. They've secured their future for next 8 years in terms of getting Malo Gusto, in terms of getting Noni Madueke. Uh, and now what if they get Enzo Fernandez in the last dying moments? At this point, deal doesn't look to be on. Their clubs do not have the best of ties, to be very honest, because Chelsea have tried to go on to go to Benfica and try to say, okay, we are not going to give you the release clause, because all of a sudden what has happened is, they have really sugarcoated Enzo Fernandez. They've been able to really convince Enzo Fernandez, the player, but the club Benfica is not quite happy with it. The club Benfica is pretty stubborn at this point, and that Benfica also feels Chelsea are not doing the right deal, because initially they told they'll pay the release clause, and now what has happened is, because they've been able to convince Enzo Fernandez, they're like, oh, we won't give you the release clause, we're just going to give you the money which we want to give you. Now that's like something which you don't do to a club. All of a sudden, the trust or the kind of negotiation, mutual trust which you have built over a period of time goes off all of a sudden, and that's where Benfica feels like Chelsea is not the ideal entity to negotiate with at this point, especially on a deadline day, because Chelsea can pull off anything. Chelsea are doing a very aggressive sort of business at this point because they just need players. They just need players, and they're very desperate for it. And what Chelsea did was they kind of anticipated Enzo Fernandez joining last night, and they've gone on to sell someone like a Jorginho to Arsenal on that very thinking that, okay,
Oh
we are going
yeah,
to have Enzo joining us tomorrow.
that's probably the most stunning news that is coming out right now, isn't it? Because two clubs which are huge rivals of each other. Arsenal fans are not very happy as well that a player who's been established for Chelsea is coming over. But I mean, for me, I really think it's going to be a great thing for Arsenal, because that's one thing that you still would say that we spoke about it as well over our past few lives, that if there's one thing that Man City has, an edge that Man City has over Arsenal, is the fact that Man City have trophy winners and they've had experience winning matches or winning leagues rather, and winning tournaments. But Arsenal hasn't done that in a while. But now with Jorginho coming in, someone who's won the World, I mean, not the World Cup, but someone who's won the Euro, someone who's won the Champions League, he is a well decorated player. Came very close as well to winning the Ballon d'Or. So you would say now that this guy is someone who can solve their problems when it comes to, when it comes to their experience at least.
Yeah, I mean, to be very fair, at this point, I really don't see him even start for Arsenal. But of course, if at all they want to compete in all the competitions, and they've been doing extremely well in Premier League at this point, if at all Xhaka face any sort of injuries, they need a leadership kind of a player with experience to step into that role. And you're playing the Europa League as well. Now you're in the knockouts of the Europa League, which is also an extremely tough competition at this point of stage. Now, when we used to talk about Europa League a couple of seasons ago, we used to consider it at least as a lower tier European competition. But now at least Europa League has really gone up at least 2 to 3 notch higher than what it was in the prior season. So which means you really have to be in your A game even to compete in the Europa League, because one bad game and you could be on your way out. What happened in Barcelona last season? So that is what I'm trying to say, right? So they will need squad depth. Last season, you saw how Arsenal really struggled to finish off the season. They were very close to finishing in the top four, making it into the Champions League. But come the last few games, they did not have the squad depth to finish it off. So realizing that and anticipating that, they wanted a player who's experienced enough to really go into the Premier League team and actually do a job, because Jorginho has already done it. He might not be the most flamboyant or the most beautiful player to play in the number six position for your team. He's definitely going to be much more slower, but he's someone who, and I really don't know how he's going to fit into Arteta's system as well, because he's not really a player who fits into Arteta's system like what he should do for Chelsea. Chelsea, he used to really play that shielding role, who used to play from the center line, who used to advance at times, but primarily his role was to, give that cover role, get into the, if it is for him to tuck into a back five, he could do that as well. When it comes to him progressing the ball up front, there was definitely question marks, because his progressive play is extremely poor, has gotten poor after the success he had after him winning the UEFA Best Player as well. But for Italy uh, under Mancini, especially for Euros, you saw a positive aspect of Jorginho, where he was progressing the ball a lot more. I hope Arteta will be able to bring almost a similar characteristics or trait, which is actually imbibed in a player like Jorginho. He's still got it in him. It's not like he's completely gone off the radar. He's absolutely poor. He's still world class at the end of the day. He's still a player who's a defending champions of a Euro winning squad, who has won Champions League for Chelsea. He still has got ice cold veins when it comes to taking penalties in crucial junctures of the game. He's got a lot of positive traits as well, which I think Arsenal fans should be pretty happy about at this point. And I think it's a steal for Arsenal at this point. You should take a player like Jorginho, because he's not going to be a starter for sure. But to come off a bench, when you have an experience of Jorginho to come off the bench, and in an high intensity Premier League game, especially if it is a close out a game, you can get a lot of positive traits from Jorginho, which you can use in these kind of situations. And for me, I will take those traits of Jorginho any day. And as if I was supporting Arsenal, if I was part of the Arsenal management, I'll be pretty confident and sure of the signing which I've really made at this point.
You have to say that in terms of Jorginho, he would be very happy at the fact that he was 10th in the league, and then within a few hours he's gone top of the league as a player, and now he
Yeah.
sits possibly the winners of sits in the dressing room of possibly the winners of England. Let's talk about this comment from John Walker, who talks about Liverpool and their lack of signings on deadline day. How would you rate their signing window so far? I mean, they've gotten Cody Gakpo. Has he really impressed you? Do you reckon he's lived up to the standards that people expected him to, or is it too soon for us to really make a judgment?
It is too soon, firstly. Secondly, Liverpool did not really want a Cody Gakpo in this window. What Liverpool needed was a midfielder.
Yeah.
What Liverpool at this point needs is a
Hmm.
midfielder. And what you see from the FSG group is that they're extremely, extremely reluctant on spending. Once they spend on a particular player, then they just take a whole another break, and they will, okay, let's just wait, let's see how things go. And then if we want, we'll sign another player, or else let this transfer window go by. And that's what they did in the last transfer window as well. They went all guns blazing for Nunes, and what they got was what? They got nothing out of him. Okay, he's had a very, very mediocre season to the kind of standards his rival has in Erling Haaland. But even there, it's not been the most idealistic signing, and they have not really signed as per demands of what they really need. And that's where I personally think it's been extremely disappointing. And I mentioned about Ryan Gravenberch. I really thought Liverpool should have pushed all guns to get a player like Gravenberch on loan move at least. If not, they didn't want to sign him, because they have not gotten a midfielder. Now, what's going to happen is this midfield is absolutely jaded out. If you remember, in the last few games, Liverpool has played this midfield looks like a midfield which is worn out, which lacks creativity, which lacks intensity. Fabinho's form has deteriorated it's like a flock of cards falling down overnight, or just with a tip. Everything has fallen down for Liverpool, because Fabinho, before the World Cup, at least he was looking like a very solid midfielder, and all of a sudden, what has happened is Fabinho has gone off. Henderson has looked completely jaded. That's also primarily because he's aging to an extent, and in a system like Liverpool, you need to put in a lot of intensity. And last season, as the kind of performance they put in last season, where they competed for all trophies till the last day of the league, the last day of European football, is a very reason why this season players have been, told out. There is a certain toll which has been taken upon the players, and also looking at the squad depth which Liverpool has, they do not have the squad depth to compete in all competitions. Let's be very honest. Liverpool, when they're a completely fit and fine squad, is a different team. And the moment couple of players get injured, the Liverpool becomes a team which just falls apart, just falls apart like cards. We've seen that. I keep mentioning this in 2021 season. It took that Allison goal against Aston Villa for them to qualify into the top four. Similarly, what has happened this season is a very similar trend. I don't even think they'll be qualifying into the Champions League next season. And Liverpool also are going through a transitional phase where you're seeing new players getting inducted into the squad, and at the same time, they'll need a complete revamp in the midfield. The midfield is one area they need a complete revamp. And I still think Liverpool is just one Thiago injury from absolutely having a disastrous season possible, where they could even finish below 10th or 12th if things go really bad for them, because they're extremely dependent on Thiago when it comes to defensive work rate and also attacking progression, because he has the most touches on the ball for Liverpool, and Thiago is an extremely injury prone player, and that's why Naby Keita's form has been extremely disappointing. Fabinho has been extremely disappointing. Henderson has been extremely disappointing, and Milner, you can't definitely rely on him. He's 38 years old at this point. So this is what I personally think. There is definitely a youngster from the academy called Beatic. I have a lot of hopes on this young lad. 18-year-old, plays a number six, plays in a very similar position like Busquets does for Barcelona. Uh, I still think it's very young. It's still early days for him to be inducted into the Premier League. But of course, if you give him enough game time, and if you give him that kind of confidence over a period of time, slowly integrate him into the squad, I think he's going to be an exciting prospect for Liverpool in the coming years at least.
Helga Fruler says that she's happy that I think she's a Man City supporter here. That sorry, not Man City, that a Bayern Munich supporter that they've signed Cancelo. I think that is a good news for Bayern Munich fans. And Carlo Fernandez asks who are Barca signing. So as far as I know, Amrabat, as that deal has fallen through, because they have Fiorentina has not accepted the buy clause. I mean, the option to buy clause in the loan deal, and that's the reason why Barcelona and Fiorentina have not agreed for Sofia and Amrabat. That's what I'm hearing from the tweet here by Fabrizio Romano. But you will disappointed as a curler yourself?
Not really. At the same time, because see, Amrabat is definitely a good move if you get him, and if you're getting him on loan, of course, great. He's not is not like a player who you really wanted, whom you really decide. This particular transfer, Amrabat personally wanted to join Barcelona as well. All of a sudden, he started putting Instagram stories very similar to what's happening with Enzo as well on the other end. People get excited, once a particular club shows interest, and if it's a big European club, all of a sudden they get very excited. They want to show least interest towards the club they are in right now, which I think is very extremely unprofessional. But at the same time, can't blame him. All of a sudden, a giant like Barcelona is still, though they're not winning trophies or anything, they're still a European giant. A moment you get an opportunity to play for Barcelona, who's got an extremely great project at this point, they're able to convince players because they've got a project which is in hand, which is very exciting for players to join, and that's one of the reasons why most of the players are extremely keen in joining Barcelona. And at this point, Bernardo Silva, I don't think City will let go of him, because if they are going to let go of Bernardo and Cancelo in a span of 2 days, it's going to be a huge L on Pep and Manchester City, because then they'll be really struggling to compete in all competitions, to be very fair. But for me, one player who Barca will possibly sign is Julian Araujo from LA Galaxy, and that's one
Yeah,
player who I
yeah.
that's one player who I see happening over the next few hours. But Amrabat, I don't know if the deal can still come off. You never know. It could, negotiations could be still on. We're still hearing a lot of news from here and there. I think we should wait for deadline to completely be over, because if Barca wants, okay, we don't want a buyout clause, but we just want him over a period of next 6 months, then we'll discuss is possible transfer in the summer. Then it still can work out for Fiorentina and for Barcelona over the next few hours as well, because these things can happen over a period of time really quick as well, because Italy and Barcelona are not that far off. It's just one flight of couple of hours to really land in Barcelona and get the signings done and get the medical done over the next couple of days. So these things do keep happening. But talking about Cancelo, for Bayern Munich, as I mentioned, he's an extremely positive move for Bayern Munich, because that's one area they really wanted, a player who can move to the attacking front and create those opportunities, especially in the final third. And a player like Cancelo, what he can really bring into that squad is immense depth as well.
I mean, I think one final thoughts enable on the last, I think probably the one that I'm really interested in, where you have Kelly Navas, who's been approached by Nottingham Forest for him to get a loan deal to from Paris Saint-Germain to Nottingham, because I think Dean Henderson has suffered some injuries, so they want someone to complete the
Yeah,
season with.
Sabitzer has now signed for
What do you
United.
think about Kelly? Yeah, I mean, fair enough. So that is news here for Manchester United fans that Sabitzer has signed on the dotted line. But able, let's talk about Kylian Navas. Then, what do you think of him? Because I've always felt he's been a bit unlucky in terms of his career overall. Because wherever he's come or wherever he's played, he's always been ousted by a goalkeeper. Probably right. I mean, a few months or a transfer window just after he was signed. It's happened with him multiple times. It happened with him, for instance, in Real Madrid, most famously, where he was brought. He did a good enough job for them. Then few months later, you had I mean the Belgian goalkeeper, who's currently the goalkeeper as well, Thibaut Courtois, to come in, replace him, put him on the bench. Same thing happened to him here in Paris Saint-Germain, where Donnarumma came in, and obviously he was once again put on the bench. He's still the number one at Paris Saint-Germain, but he's never been the number one goalkeeper. Now him going to Nottingham Forest, is you would reckon it's a very good deal for him, at least personally.
Yeah, personally, yes, for him it's going to be a very good deal because I don't see him, you know, competing against Donnarumma and really getting that nose ahead until and unless something really drastic happens. And for me, for at this point of stage in Kylian Navas' career, you want to go to a club which can possibly give you more minutes. Uh, Go to a club who really needs players with experience to really motivate the dressing room, be a mentor in a bigger sense as well. With Kylian Navas, what he's got 4 UCLs under his bag, if not four, what 3 UCLs? I think he's got
Hmm.
3 UCLs under his bag, and that is a very good that's a very good thing to have. And a UCL winner walking into your dressing room is definitely going to be a huge motivation for a lot of players. And if you look at Nottingham Forest, they are a team who just came into the Premier League. They're looking to sign as many players as possible to stay in the Premier League. At this point of time, Nottingham Forest's only goal is to stay in the Premier League more than to even compete for for a position in the Premier League rather. So if I were Kyle Navas, I would really take that deal and believe that okay, this is the perfect place for me to go to possibly end my career. But uh, yeah, at the same time, if he's looking for European glory once again, I think he shouldn't leave PSG. You still can be a European champion even sitting on the bench. So these are factors which Kyle Navas will have to make decisions over. But if he's a fierce competitor and he really wants to get enough playing time under his belt, so I really do see him making a move to Nottingham Forest if it's a very good deal.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Well, that's pretty much it from us then. I mean, before we end, I think I'll take the final question then. Azul says, what are your thoughts on the rift in City's dressing room? I think we've pretty much covered it, but able few words before we end the line.
See, I really do not know what is the rift all about, but it's just a couple of players who are unhappy with the minutes they've had under the belt. It's also primarily because there's a lot of competition in their team. You know, you look at the number of players there who's
Hmm.
already waiting on the wings. There is Mahrez who's not getting enough game time. Gundogan is there now. Whatever reports I'm getting, City are also interested in Bellingham for the summer. So, and also Madison for the summer. So
Hmm.
City are looking to bring in new players into the system as well. And what Bernardo feels is a particular sentiment already his Portugal teammate felt, and he is possibly feeling that okay, his friend or his best friend in the team was not treated well, and that particular sentiment just got rubbed off into Bernardo's, because what I still see is Bernardo is still an integral part of the City squad, because he's been starting almost every game for City. He's still a very important cog in the wheel for Manchester City, especially when especially in the attacking front alongside De Bruyne. If you talk about a creative midfielder there, obviously talk about Bernardo Silva, and he's done a phenomenal job for them over the last 5 seasons with Manchester City, because the moment he came to City, you really saw the impact, and he's really grown as a player there as well. So I only could possibly pick up this particular reason, that because Cancelo did have a rift. Cancelo was not happy about the fact that he was not getting enough minutes under the belt. An 18-year-old player was preferred over him. So when these things happen, obviously they're best friends in the team, Portugal teammates. It does tend to get spread on to your other teammate, because that was a very similar thing which happened with Messi when Luis Suarez left as well. So these things do happen in every team, and from whatever I'm hearing, I don't think Bernardo is going anywhere. I know Barcelona are very very keen on signing him over the last few hours. I don't see that deal happening at this point because it's still a heavy wage bill which Barcelona will have to adopt. Barcelona just managed to register Gavi
Mhm.
today after winning a court case, rather not on FFP and not on straight wage. They had to go to the court and win a court case there to get, to show the accounts books that they have enough wage cap in terms of registering players, and that's how they have 5 million wage cap at this point. So let's see how things turn on over the next few months, next few hours, and if things go well, he might be at Barcelona for him personally, or else he'll have to stay in City till summer, and then possibly City will get a Madison to replace him or a Bellingham to replace him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's pretty much it then from us. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and we will be back again. I mean, we are not going. The action doesn't stop here because there's a lot more football action coming up. Because the Premier League is still on, Serie A. I mean, all these leagues are up there. We also have European football coming back in a few weeks' time as well. So we will be covering it actively here on Boom 11. And of course, cricket on the side of cricket as well. Australia are here in India for the Border Gavaskar Trophy and as well for the white ball side of things as well. But before we leave you with the fact that you guys can download and play Boom 11 on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Because what Boomer Heaven can offer you is a risk-free fantasy experience because you don't have to invest any money whatsoever, and at the same time you can make sure that you are able to get rewards. And also we're going to bring out some exciting features very soon. So stay tuned and keep watching and supporting us. So thank you guys. Thank you, Abel, and we'll be back soon.
Thank you, Shan. Thank you so much, and see you all very soon. And we'll be back with a lot more action over the next few hours, and we'll be back tomorrow, of course, to talk about India versus New Zealand series decider, which is a T20 series. And over the next few days, we'll
Yeah.
have complete coverage on Border Gavaskar Trophy and also on European football, which is happening in a very quick manner. And thank you all for joining. We will keep you updated on all the news. Follow our Instagram page for that. All the latest transfers will be broken up there, and we will be covering it in detail in our live sessions as well. Thank you and have a good time, all of you.